Hallo?
Hallo.
Hallo? Hallo?
Hallo. Hallo. Herzlich willkommen zum Talk mit Jakob Dietrich von Memphis und Memphis und Laura Põld im Rahmen der Vienna Art Week. Danke euch beiden, dass ihr euch die Zeit nehmt und uns diese Einblicke in das Kunstschaffen gewährt. Ich werde euch gleich das Wort überlassen. Ihr werdet es euch auch selber vorstellen. Ich würde bitten, die Teilnehmerinnen, Zuschauerinnen, sich stumm zu schalten bis zum Schluss ungefähr vom Gespräch, wo wir dann bitten, auch Fragen zu stellen, dann gerne wieder unmuten. Aber sonst gibt es immer Störgeräusche. Und dann übergebe ich jetzt gleich an dich, Jakob. Gutes Gespräch, gutes Gelingen. Wir freuen uns. Vielen Dank.
Ja, wunderbar. Danke, Katharina, für die Einführung. Wir werden jetzt gleich auf Englisch switchen, weil wir beide das so ausgemacht haben und für Laura und für mich das so ein Treffen in der Mitte ist, so die jeweilige Muttersprache dann irgendwie auch zu verlassen, so ein bisschen auf unsicheres Terrain vorzuwagen, was das Ganze ja allgemein auch immer ist, zumindest auch für mich, wenn es irgendwie um andere Arbeitsweisen auch geht. Yeah, again, hello everybody. That's Laura Põld and me, Jakob Dietrich. We would like to welcome you on behalf of the Art Week, Vienna Art Week. Thank you, Katharina, again, and the team of the Vienna Art Week for the whole organization of the whole event in these challenging times and for bringing us together. Big thank you. Yeah, actually this setting originally was intended to be an artist talk, a studio visit at Laura's studio, more temporary studio. Actually, it's not, it's an online meeting. And everything's gonna function a bit different than it was originally intended. We both agreed that we first introduce ourselves. In my case, that's me. I'm an artist and something like a curator. I'm part of different artist collectives. I'm working on different cultural and artistical projects in Linz and abroad. Our venue is called Memphis. I'm running that venue together with my colleague Kai Rote, who is also an artist living in Vienna. We are running that space together since 2014 under the name Memphis. Before it was called Nomadenetappe. Nomadenetappe because the group who ran the space before was interested in projects which were happening in abandoned buildings and moving through the city. So therefore it's called something like a nomadic practice. Here in Memphis, we are doing mostly exhibitions, group exhibitions, duo exhibitions, solo exhibitions, between 6 and 10, 11 exhibitions per year, with local artists, Austrian artists, international artists, on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, we're also doing projects outside of the venue, international collaborational projects in different countries through whole Europe. This year was also for us super challenging. Yeah, we had to not only to postpone planned exhibitions and projects, but also to cancel a few of them, which on the one hand side, of course, was super sad. On the other hand side, it also gave us a bit resources to develop us further on a structural level. For example, we started to work with artists who already exhibited with us on editions. On the one hand side, to bring them back in front a bit of the audience, out of the archive, out of the website. And on the other hand side, to also extend our audience a bit. Currently, we are showing an exhibition. Actually, the exhibition is on without having the possibility to let people in. So we had a super small opening 2 weeks ago with 2 of the participating artists. It was the most exclusive opening we ever had here. The exhibition, and I'm gonna try something right now. I'm not sure if it's working. Laura, please shout if.
So the Memphis mobile, there's no video now, but I can see. You just need to turn on.
Can you hear me?
Sound. Yes, yes.
So what we're gonna do is just a short walk through the exhibition and to get an idea of the space, of the venue. The exhibition is called Liminal Encounters, something like, to be translated into German, like Grenzbegegnungen, and it deals with different border regimes and different levels and areas. I don't want to go too much into details. We are showing 5 different artists. This is a video by the French artist Judy Chafford, where a real horse meets his his pendant in form of a balloon. This is the leftovers, or the parts, one part of usually originally planned performative sculpture by Thomas Watteblet. It's also a French artist. Actually, it's just one part of the whole thing, because COVID measurements didn't allow us to show the performative part of the whole thing. This is a work by Austrian-French artist Camille Olovka, and it shows, I'm not sure if you can see that right now, it shows the last imprint of a dying dove hitting a window glass, a window surface. Yes, and then there are a few other works, one by Andrea Litt, wall painting, again, a sculptural work by Camille Olovka, a video by Enrique Ramirez, and a puzzle work by Thomas Watteblet. So this was just to give you an idea how our venue is looking, how we deal with spatial conditions of our venue. As I said, the whole thing is planned to be, it's intended to be, just a second, I need to switch.
So, back again, sorry. A non-commercial space for artists and for curators, for writers, filmmakers, and so on. Yeah, and we're not selling anything except our editions. So, yeah, mainly that's it, I think. Laura, do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
So hello from my side as well. I'm sitting in my studio in Vienna, but Linz is also a very important city for me at the moment. Originally, I come from Estonia. This is where I was born, and I did most of my studies. So I started at the Estonian Academy of Arts. I graduated from the ceramics department in 2007, and then I went to another Estonian university in Tartu, the University of Tartu, where I studied painting, but there I developed work that was already dealing with the whole exhibition space, and somehow the possibilities were quite generous. I was able to make solo exhibitions, so somehow the work grew from this two-dimensional medium to the space quite early on. And then after graduation in 2010, I received my first residency grant, and I was able to come to Vienna for 3 months. And this is when this nomadic artistic period started. So it's been like now 10 years, mostly working also internationally, I guess, still producing projects, mostly with the support of Estonian cultural funds. So I'm still very much dependent on my home country and the art scene and my colleagues there and the institutions. But now recently also spending more time in Austria. In Vienna, this space is also typical of me. I have been here only for a few months. It's a home studio. I was hoping to open it for the public, and the Vienna Art Week's motto, Living Rituals, sounded like a very nice introduction to my work, because I often deal with this topic home, and I guess this is what happens when you travel all the time. You think about this so much, and you learn who you are when you see people who do things so differently, and the language is maybe not your first mode of communication. So the space and the body and what you do and how it becomes more important. Yeah, I thought actually I don't have so much to show in my studio, especially with this laptop, and I would prefer to share.
Yeah, maybe we can shift to like a few general things about your work, and later come back to your studio. Right?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
I mean, we met a few times, like preparing meetings to talk about the talk today and what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it. And we talked a lot about your work and your different approaches to working methods and materials and so on. So you are very interested in craft techniques. You work a lot with different materials, with clay, with fabrics, with textiles, threads, wool, natural materials, and also eatable things. You deal with organic structures, biological processes, but also with social rituals. Also, I mean, going through your website and your portfolio, for me, it seems that your works are usually not individual pieces, as like solitary works. This is my piece, and that's it. But rather spatial arrangements of many small individual parts and pieces, which in your exhibitions are all components of site-specific intervention. And although your starting point or is often based in techniques or in specific techniques and materials, there are often other layers and levels, for example, cultural, scientific, philosophical, sociological, political, or even architectural constructs or pieces in the background for your starting points or your points of interest for your work. You prepared a super nice PDF, and maybe we can go through it, and maybe you can illuminate your approach and working methods in general a little more closely by looking at a specific exhibition, and perhaps your part in this exhibition, which took place in 2017 in France, in Traignac, in this space called Traignac Projet, an exhibition space which focuses a lot on transdisciplinary artistic methodologies, and has the name, or was titled Infrastructures, Monsters of the Seven Lakes, curated by the Finnish curator Jussi Koittila. Maybe that could be a good starting point.
Yeah. You are looking at a beautiful portrait photograph, Tove Jansson, and it's because Jussi invited me to this project with the proposal to deal with Tove Jansson's work somehow, or it wasn't very specific, but of course, as a child, I grew up with the Moomin stories, and I don't know, my grandmother read them to me, and somehow this relationship with the nature that was sometimes very harsh, and there was a flood, and the family had to escape and so on. So this is something that for us, a Nordic country or a Scandinavian person is quite familiar, and the stories, first of all, were not so how to say, like I guess I was a bit terrified by the invitation to work actually with the story of the Moomin, but it was a good opportunity to look into the life, the biography of Tove Jansson. So this is just the curatorial synopsis of the whole project. I was not the only artist there, so there were like five artists. But yeah, just to introduce a little bit this curious creatures. So there are so many books and films and cartoons, but if you haven't seen them, I'm not going to
in real life
tell these stories. But what I like about this, it's like still it's a children's story, but the characters are really like it's written here. I just put down some keywords that they are not cruel, but they are really like they have quite bad characters. So they are whining a lot, and their life is filled with difficulties, like family fights and relationship trouble and financial trouble, and all natural disasters happen around them, and the background is of course the wartime, and Tove Jansson grew up and saw also difficult era, but so as I was doing this like mild research and reading about her biography and her life, and she studied to be a painter, but she gained much more success with the cartoon and working for anti-fascist magazine, and the Moomin stories brought her much more success than the painting practice, and the way she dealt with this, and also the complicated private life, maybe at some point became a deeper interest for me. And what you see on this photograph is Tove Jansson later in her life. So in her 50s, she met Tuulikki Pietilä, also an artist. She was working internationally. She was actually born in the United States, but they mostly worked in Helsinki, but they also traveled together a lot. And what they created for themselves was this very special little world, they were able to buy a small island and illegally basically build a small house there. And so their summers looked like this, that they were able to move there in May, and they stayed until late September. They were sleeping in a tent and working in this small house, and Tuve was writing and drawing, and Tuuliki was working on her practice. So they supported each other, but also worked privately. And there's a beautiful film. So Tuuliki was shooting quite a lot of material of their private life with this 8mm camera. And in 1998, this film Haru, the Lonely Island, came out, and I saw it only a few years ago, but that was somehow such a personal insight to Tuve's character, how already as an older lady, she was jumping from rock to rock and was so full of joy and swimming in the cold water. And it was mostly like for an artist, sometimes what sticks is maybe the colors and the way the space worked. So the living room or this hut actually only had one room almost. So when they had windows to each direction and when the windows were open, the living space was expanded to this whole endless seascape.
Hey, this just want to interrupt you shortly. This quote you took, or you put there, too ticky. Everything is very uncertain, and that's what makes me calm.
Okay, so what? Sorry, yeah. So go on with your question. Yeah.
No, it was just. I mean, on the one hand side, I definitely don't want to interrupt you, but I think we need to go on a bit to the next thing. And just for the people who are watching, we agreed upon like an audio signal to interrupt us if we if we're gonna lose ourselves somewhere. It's gonna look like that. So I want to play it like that. And I think it also fits super to this quote. Everything is very uncertain, and that's what makes me calm. Is that something in general with what you can identify, like also like in your artistic approach of doing things? And maybe we can just skip or shift to a few pages further to the actual to the outcome of this super interesting story in the background and your research about them too.
Yeah, I like this quote. So Tuudiki is a creature by Tuve Jansson, but it's based on this Tuuliki Pietilä's character. And so I think in the relationship there was this nice balance, and also on the footage or on the photographs you can also sense this, that Tuuliki was the more grounded side of the couple. So I thought it's I like this sentence, but I think I myself also I just go further with the images. And I also like this. Sorry. Going to the spook side. Yeah. So I think in my life, I really also need a balance of unexpected elements and some kind of security as well. So it's, but I think this is the case for everyone. So okay, so this is the last picture of the island, and of course, yeah, I went overboard with googling pictures of their fantastic life. So what I built in this space at Reignac Projet was, for me, it was a model of their house. So there were also 4 walls, and on the same time they were kind of borderless, and in the so here on this photograph, the back wall with the items on or some kind of objects on the wall, and these canvases. So the canvases are mobile. You can close them like windows and put them to the side. This was not done so much in the space, and there were all these kind of natural looking objects. So this is porcelain and glazed, but it's actually broke, but it looks so natural the way kind of like what the clay is doing, and sometimes the process, the accidents I love to work with, and yeah, a few more views. And Trenjak is a special village. It's supposed to be the most I don't know, like wet area in France. There's so much rain, and everything you leave outside starts to grow moss on it. So it was easy to get these kind of natural elements for the ceramics to lean on. So this was like a snail object, but I built it actually in Estonia, and I took it with me to France with a backpack, and I had really no idea how it's gonna where it's going to belong in the show. So I was lucky to be able to stay there for a month almost and pick up a few like this stone as well is something that I was able to integrate. And yeah, the Trenjak project was an old factory for making thread. So around the facilities there were also all these like cones lying around for thread and a few other items, and some of the spaces were quite rough looking, and the nature was kind of coming in, or there was no roof partly, or the roof was being repaired. So yes, here it's also a little bit like a model of this rocky landscape in Finland. It's like some handmade ceramics, but actually the more like functional looking objects like the two jugs and the little cups are just from a flea market from Trenjak. So I was also doing what so many artists are doing, collecting and integrating objects. And there was the third venue to this work. So this was an outdoor area, but it had partly had a roof on top of it. So there was like this cliff where I also I was able to hide some of my own ceramic objects and some of these found objects, like quite classical looking functional ceramics, which I find like it's something that you bring to the summer cottage, this kind of ceramics that are more solid and they don't break so easily, and maybe they are not so valuable, but they need to be very practical and the right size. And so I was kind of searching for this kind of architecture in the ceramics. And yeah, it was here on this photo. I love how the nature is so close and it's all balanced. And yeah, so the way you described your platform, so how Memphis is working. So I think Trenjak project is working similarly. So there are not so many visitors, although like Paris is quite interested in, like so many artists are visiting Trenjak and coming to the workshops, but it's mostly really for the artists who are participating either in the exhibition or in the workshop. So here is Jussi and other artists who are in there. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. This directly leads to the next part. You already put on the next sheet. Yeah, I mean, another huge part of your work, besides intense research processes on different levels and a strong focus to the. Okay, there's some tunes coming in. No, gone again. Okay, was this a signal for me or Laura?
Not from me. Someone else sent you this.
Okay. Yeah, another aspect of your work is the ongoing collaborations with other artists from various disciplines. And a long and intensive collaboration connects you with the Danish artist Fiona Hansen, right?
Yeah.
And with her, you were represented to in several and different group exhibitions. It started with your own individual works, and then come to the point where you decided to do exhibition projects together and started a collaborational process before the exhibitions. And in this context, you also have discovered performance as a medium for expanding your artistic practice. So maybe you can explain your general approach to collaborative work, not only to VIENNA specifically, but in general also the second part of being a part of being individually artistically present also the collaborational part, and maybe it could also, like, you could also use this exhibition called Serving Makes Place as example for inside that part of your.
So we met in Japan in 2015. So as I said, since 2010, I've been doing quite a lot of residencies, and I discovered that often you meet other artists who are on the same level, so they are able to maybe self-organize and invite you to show in their own country or art scene, but maybe they are not so much connected yet in the international scene, or they are looking forward to take adventures. So with VIENNA, almost from the beginning of the residency, we started talking about how, so she's originally from Sweden, but lives in Copenhagen for a long time already. And I was then like trying the life between Tallinn and Vienna, and very eager to visit Copenhagen and do something together. So we kind of started thinking about how, so first of all, of course, there was a good chemistry between us and our personalities, and the work was interesting. So that, of course, is the number one. But then also sometimes you just see this opportunity to do something immediately. So I was somehow able to get an exhibition at Tallinn Art Hall Gallery. So that was 1 year later than this residency, and that's maybe what you meant by this project, where we did not yet work so much together on one performance, for example, or one object, but we came together in one space with a similar experience somehow. So VIENNA has studied architecture, and at that time when she was in Japan, she was very interested in this like kind of work philosophies. For example, the Japanese way of building wooden joints and putting together mobile space and walls and structures. And she combines, as you can see also in this photo, she combines a space, her body, some kind of activity that she can do together with members of the audience. It's very playful. It's also sometimes on the edge of breaking, and that gives it this kind of like you need to really take care if you're taking part, and so on and so on. So this curious interest of hers was something that I was admiring so much, and also sometimes when you woodwork was interesting for me too, but I wasn't as good as her in it. And sometimes you look at fantastic artworks in galleries and you think, I would be able to learn this and do something like this in 5 years, but maybe it's a collaboration with someone who is doing this already is what I could do, and then I could maybe contribute what I'm doing. So with VIENNA, this is somehow what happens after I started working together with VIENNA. I somehow like left this experiments with wood behind, and I was focusing on something else. And we, as you mentioned also, somehow we were courageous enough to perform together, to speak to the audience and invite them in and see what happens. And of course, sometimes things go wrong, and it's not so easy. So in Japan, 1.5 years later, So after our first residency, then we did a second residency. We built this work together in Maebashi, in Gunma prefecture. I was there 6 weeks earlier, and I produced these ceramic vessels for this performance there, and she came later and joined me, and she built the structure for visitors to join her in this pavilion, which looks a bit like a tea pavilion. And my part was to have people experience some kind of serving. So there were so many elements. So we were thinking about these concepts of heating, for example, in Japan or in Asia in general. Also later we went to Iran, so there somehow some of these traditional ways of heating a space during winter were a bit similar. So this concept of heating not the whole space, but heating only a small area or like a portable space, like a space inside your jacket, for example, this is actually a quite common product in Japan. Yeah, so I could go on and on.
Yeah, but you were like in that, for that exhibition, you were also like taking up of one of the perhaps the most, or in the Western world, best known traditional Japanese rituals, the tea ceremony. And you of course you deal with that in a more or less abstract way. Or are rituals in your work in general, and not only in the performative parts of your work, but in general, are they somehow important? Rituals, whatever it means. I mean, this is.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I'm thinking not only in art, in life as a foreigner. I think giving people something to eat or drink is a very simple trick, and it always works. So when I have not an open studio, but kind of like I invite friends over, this is what we do. We eat and drink together, and sometimes as an artist going to another country, it's really difficult to get audience, and so of course I see the problematics there, like with this tea ceremony. So this project had an introduction project. So in this little village where I produced the ceramic objects, there was also an exhibition, a group exhibition of this residency. And a good friend of mine, Ayumi Tomeki, she's a young Japanese woman who's very culturally educated. She says, I'm not tea master, but she said she started learning about tea ceremony already in the kindergarten. And she said kind of like every Japanese person learns about tea ceremony already in the kindergarten. So we had kind of like this, I don't know, I don't know how to call it, like I don't have a photo of it yet either, but at the moment. So she used my tea bowls, but she was the tea master. So I built a set with her together, but she was the person who was performing, was talking, and there could be only one person at the time entering this corner. And what happened there, it was a little bit, sorry for this, I'm so sorry for this comparison, but it was like Marina Abramovich's piece in MoMA, where she sits down with people. So why I'm saying this is because, for example, there was someone who had their first tea ceremony experience, someone who said, it's probably my last, I'm so old, I'm going to die. And people were sitting there next to this young, beautiful woman across the table. And somehow the viewers were crying. They were somehow having these very direct conversations, and it was in this corner. So it was a big space, but it was so private. So I had seen what can happen and how open the Japanese people are about going to this kind of space where, and of course the way I was boiling the water and warming up the milk and putting, I really tried to do it actually different. So it's not tea. There was no tea. So there was milk, there was sugar, there was some herbs or spices. So it was a little bit like some kind of Christmas latte or this kind of so I did it on purpose, like a bit kitsch. But what I'm saying is that, sorry,
yeah. I mean, maybe we can sum it up that you always, like, when you're collaborating, it's not a short-term collaboration also, but it's always more or less a super intense process, right? Which takes a longer time or so, and also leads to maybe a decision where you say this is enough. So we somehow also have to split again.
Yes,
right?
Sorry for not making a point, but yeah. No, I guess the point, what I wanted to say was that I was aware that there is such openness to this tradition of even like looking at someone, a foreigner, serving something. I felt like there was no such critique, which I actually had for myself. But yeah, but it was about something less about the tea and more about looking at the ceramic object that is semi-functional, semi-sculptural, being used in the space and not just looked at on a pedestal like in an applied arts museum, for example, where you better not touch it. So this was one element, then this heating element and being together element, and yeah, somehow maybe this was the goal, yeah, the connection, I guess.
Hey, okay.
Okay, next.
Laura, how should we? I think we have another maximum 10 minutes left. So,
okay.
What should we look on? There's so many things you prepared, we prepared. What I definitely want to have a look on is this. Yeah, it's there. This super nice publication of you of also a super huge and extensive project of you who did in collaboration with Katrin Veli. Maybe let's have a look at that one for a few minutes, and then, I mean, there's another exhibition, I think a recent one, the Shedding the Skin exhibitions, which is also definitely worth to have a look on it, because it also deals with a lot of topics artists and cultural workers are facing right now, and also especially during all the measurements Corona provided us with. And then there is the work you realized in your studio for the studio visit today. So I think all of these projects we don't have enough time for that within the next 10 minutes. What should we focus on?
So maybe I wouldn't even speak about the studio work, because for me it's not yet finished yet. It's finished when people can actually come in the space. So I didn't have the motivation to work on it so intensively after I knew it's not gonna take place. But the book project,
I mean, within the last 2 weeks, it's totally developed from that kind of stage where we like met the first time. And how it looks now. So, what do you think? How much time would you like spend on it to finish it? Is there an end, or?
Well, there's an end if there's a visit, I guess.
If there's a visit, okay, yeah, right. Okay.
I'm only here for
third song publication.
Well, just to explain the title a little bit. So the third is actually clay. Or some kind of leftover material. And why this is the title? Well, clay is the connection. It's the tool. It's the material that I am using a lot, and then I learned from the birds. So I learned how many bird species are actually building so similar objects. So my previous project was about these vessels in this ceremony piece. So many similar forms you see. Also animals, birds and insects building. But Katrin Väli is a poet. She started publishing already in the 70s, and she has, I think, now together with this book, 13 poetry collections already. I know her since the year 2000, and we are friends, and she's like my second mother or something. She's helping me with projects sometimes. So it's connected with clay. So we were visiting the clay quarry in Estonia together, and she was helping me to get the clay out of the quarry. So we were working together. And then she's also ornithologist. It's her hobby for maybe also 13 years or something now. And so I was so interested in how just next to my working place, the swallows were building their nests from the same mixture that I was using. Clay, sand, water, and some organics. So for me, it was a new knowledge that handicraft is not hand-related. It's really something that is more than human. This vessel building is more than human. So this was the starting point, and why I'm still looking at this picture is because it was the first project I ever did where the starting medium that we agreed on was a book. For her, book is the norm. For me, book is a luxury. I have another book, but I never made kind of like, so the other book was somehow made.
But there were also a few other stages before. I mean, you said that there were 2 or 3 exhibitions before and after the first phase of the project, where you, as far as I understood it, visited a lot of different human sculpted places, like abandoned industry settings and so on, right?
So we were driving around in industrial regions in Estonia, and including this quarry, and but somehow also this anger towards deforestation was something that brought us together, and we were thinking how to make this problem more visual, that the overly cutting down the forest is also it's not just for some kind of economic gain, but it's actually destroying a habitat of so many species, and so just I described this simple discovery that a vessel is actually something that so many species are building for shelter, and so this shelter metaphor was something that I mainly used for this project also, where Katrin was writing and looking over her older poems and changing a bit the perspective, so it wasn't so much from the human perspective, and so she said she also had to rewrite and reconsider a lot in her ways of looking at nature and being part of it. So the first invitation we got, so the story with the book being the first medium, it was a plan, but then of course it became much later. And the first idea was to make maybe a smaller book, and then it wasn't so easy, and then the exhibition came first. So we got an invitation, I got an invitation from a fantastic curator, Jenni Nurmeniemi. She's based in Helsinki, and she was preparing for the first Fiskars Village Art and Design Biennial, and her exhibition project was titled Beings With, and also about coexistence and thinking about the future. where it's not so human-centered. And it, in a way, it was such a great trust from her. I just proposed, how about me developing this new collaboration with Katrin for this project. So thank you so much, VIENNA. And then it just grew from there. So it was a very special exhibition venue. It was an old grain storage in Fiskar's village. I was able to use 2 grain containers. So it was a nice dark room or wooden container where these nest-like objects and the mushrooms that somehow just became part of this habitat were almost disappearing in the and yeah,
Okay,
so,
Laura, I think if we have a look at time, I think we are, Katharina, what do you say? It was quite a bit of time. There's a lot of things we could talk about, but maybe it's time to make a line.
Sum up, and maybe we want to invite our audience to also take the chance and pose questions directly to Laura and Memphis and you, Jakob. Just unmute.
Yeah, dear audience, do you have any questions for us? Nothing.
So if not, maybe Laura, you can stop the screen sharing and we can have you back on the screen. Then there's no more questions. Do you want to sum up the talk a little? And then
actually, sorry, I just wanted to ask a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we can't hear you now.
Okay. I think I'm unmuted now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, no, Laura, I want to ask you now, what are you working on now? What's your themes now? Because I see it's with nature a lot, but now what's your work about mainly?
Thank you. It's it's hard to answer. What is not finished is always somehow a puzzle. But yeah, also with the lockdown, I had to reinvent my practice a little bit. So I think there won't be any shows coming up this year, and so in the next months. And I have a goal to finish my studies also, and so I'm experimenting with something which I can maybe show you also in the space. So I'm trying out the new medium in my studio. Well, ceramics is a bit complicated because you need to have a kiln, but now so for example, here is an object. It's it looks like half of a hand or something. It has these fingers, and somehow like it's, for me, it signifies maybe like desire or the or a touch, and now I'm trying to figure out where it belongs. So I've made a little rug that works a little bit like a shadow for this object. It's made with a tufting gun, and so I made these little rugs last week, and now I'm just in the process of finishing them up. So I'm really working on something where I don't know where it will end up. So it's somehow connected to this interest in the process of mining raw materials and our desire to always have more and And also, I must admit, as an artist, it's very picturesque when you walk in these landscapes where the earth is opened up, and then you can see all these layers of time. But yeah, so I'm planning to combine these objects that I'm making here with ceramic and these rocks, and somehow this research with the mining and the quarries, and yeah, it's all quite open yet, but yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, April.
Thank you very much, Laura, for these insights in your process of working into your studio, which we were longing very much to come and visit soon in real life. Also, if this is necessary, that your work is getting finished, so we even have more pressure.
Yes.
Thank you both, Jakob and Laura, for your time and engagement for Vienna Art Week. We're very happy to give the platform to present fantastic artists of this town. And yeah, if there are no more questions, then there remains nothing but to say goodbye and have a nice evening, and to invite you, maybe you want to join in tomorrow. We have an interesting talk with Elisabeth of Samsonov and Erwin Wurm at 4 p.m. and then the final lecture of Byung-Chul Han, the Korean philosopher who gave us the impulse for the theme of this year's Vienna Art Week, rituals, living rituals, with his book Vom Verschwinden der Rituale. It's in German. And he will talk to us, a lecture on rituals, and also discuss with Angela Stief afterwards shortly. You might be interested. Yeah, happy if you join in also tomorrow, and thank you again, Laura and Jakob.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Goodbye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye.